More than half of the world believes in Jesus in one way or another. There are sayings and a position about prayer attributed to him that are very different to almost everyone else, including and especially those who claim to follow Jesus today. As the scenario goes, he was around people who thought praying was a good and moral thing, something to show off, something that impressed God, angels, and other high and mighty creatures like myself that seem to be so insecure that they need you to constantly tell them how awesome they are at fixed intervals every day. That concept disgusted and angered Jesus, as it does me. It's the same general attitude today. So the story was probably partly, if not entirely, true. But whether it was true or not, the moral of the story is at least as important today as it was back then. Probably a lot more. Think of this from the perspective of a god or some other advanced creature in high places. You sit on your ass, asking an invisible, anonymous magic person you don't even know exists to do things for you that defy logic and the laws of physics. I mean, the laws of physics are there for a reason. Asking them to violate their own rules. If you're going to do that, don't expect anything to happen. It didn't happen the other trillion times before, and it won't happen now. What kind of God would go to the trouble of helping someone who sits on their ass doing nothing but complain and asking others to do everything for them? What kind of God would answer prayers to someone who is praying to the wrong God? You want it to rain? What about all the animals who have to sit out in that rain, wet and cold? Do you think about them? Are you more important? Do you think any heavenly creature would respect someone with that attitude? They would likely smite you for the trouble. It bothers me a lot that the examples and lesson that Jesus gave about prayer and faith, as simple and clear as they are, which is as simple and clear as it can get, they still go completely over everyone's head for 2,000 years. And fuck knows how long before that. These concepts didn't just appear then and there. I've never met a single exception who remotely understands a word of it. Jesus spoke a very important and well-known story about faith that can move mountains. He made it clear that it wasn't about the amount of faith, but the type of faith. It's all about context. He gave an example of two men, as in two different contexts of faith. One of those men prayed to God to move a mountain, and nothing happened. No matter how hard he prayed, nothing ever happened. No matter how long he prayed, nothing ever happened. Just like nothing ever happens every other time the rest of you pray for stupid crap. Ever heard of anyone who ever prayed for a mountain to be moved into the sea? Just like in that story? And had it come true? Well, you can take their word for it, that it did, like many claim, but the dog always ate the evidence or some shit, and you just have to trust them. So instead of having faith in God, you have to have faith in them now. No matter how much you pray, that mountain will never, ever, ever get moved into the sea. That's the reason why it will never get moved into the sea, the fact that you are praying. But there's another man in this story. He had a different type of faith. The man that believed in moving the mountain so much that he didn't ask anyone to do it for him. He got off his ass, picked up a shovel, and started digging. One man believed that someone else would do it for him. The other man believed in doing it. Which man really believes in moving the mountain? Jesus said that if you have the right type of faith, even if it was as small as can be, it would grow due to your actions. He referred to it as a mustard seed, being so tiny, yet it grows into a massive tree bigger than others. Someone with great faith would typically get it done sooner. Someone with tiny faith will eventually get it done over a long time, but only so long as they have the right type of faith. While evidence universally points to God and other supernatural creatures as being non-interventionary, at least for the most part, even if such God was hypothetically willing to grant people's wishes like a genie, what kind of God would grant the wishes of pieces of shit like that, who sit on their asses complaining and doing nothing? And even worse, for those who do something, but only so much as to virtue signal as weekend warriors, taking photos of themselves planting trees and protesting over whatever the new fad is, taking photos for Facebook and shit, often asking for shady donations in the name of someone else's cause. To see someone dying in the gutter, for example, and you do nothing but wave your hand, saying, "Peace, brother, I'm praying for you," and you just walk on by and let him die, that is one of the most hypocritical and disgusting things you could ever do. What do you think a God would think of such a pathetic creature? And why even pray in the first place? If you have faith in God, then why do you even need to ask? Why don't you trust that he already knows? And if somehow you need to tell him for him to know for some bizarre reason, well, why don't you pray every waking moment for something more important first, like a cure for cancer or some shit? If you have faith in someone else, then all of that faith is inside them, and none of it is inside you. If you believe in it so much that you get off your ass and do it, then you're faithful, and therefore full of faith. One of these people has faith, one of them does not. Context matters. This faith bullshit is the difference between two people who say they have a lot of money. One person has $1 million in a suitcase. The other person has a debt of $1 million held in the other guy's suitcase. Which one has the money? If the guy with the debt says, "I have money in this other guy," who wouldn't interpret that guy as being a toxic, lying asshole who is completely full of shit, playing stupid games with words? And to virtue signal that as some kind of moral and impressive, humble thing. It's batshit crazy. And so you should think exactly the same of people who pray when they should be doing, just as that man of debt. I guarantee you that any creature with the power to grant your prayers is going to look at such a pathetic creature and make fun of them, or fuck with them, or make an example of them in disgust. You shut the fuck up, you get off your fucking ass, you do what you can, and then you pray once there is nothing left you can do. And if you can still pray, chances are, unless you're paralyzed in a bed or something, there is still more shit you can do. Do everything you can, and then pray after everything you can possibly do is already done. It's like having a pizza in front of you and complaining that you're starving and dying, and you pray for someone to magically levitate a piece of pizza into the air and into your mouth, instead of just picking it up for yourself and eating it. People that stupid don't deserve to live in the first place. They need to be prevented from having children, and they're not safe around anyone or anything. They're likely to cause a car accident chasing unicorns on a freeway. And the world is full of these idiots. Are you an exception? Think back. Have you done that prayer bullshit? Have you played the same card as that man with the debt? In most cases, praying is evil. And the only powerful creatures you're going to attract are evil creatures that will consume and destroy you. and make fun of you for entertainment. So I say, stop praying. Start doing. And only pray once you are damn well sure there is nothing left you can do. And when you do pray, don't pray to a creature or version of it that you were told by someone else. If you pray to the flying spaghetti monster, no other real God is going to answer you or even take you seriously. So when you pray, after all that can be done is done, pray to whoever or whatever may hear you. After all, it might not be a who but a what, like some interdimensional non-person computer or some shit. Who the fuck knows what's out there, and who or what can hear and be able to respond and do. Direct your request in such a way that it applies to any and all potential recipients, so that they don't ignore it as a message for someone else. And ask them to do what you can't. Give them a clear request, a clear reason why it's relevant and important, and make sure that your request involves a greater worthy plan beyond just you and your own selfish desires and impulses. Give them a moral, justified, grand of all scales reason to do it. And don't expect anyone to answer. What kind of God would take someone seriously when they ask them 100 times over and over? Ask once and only once. Anyone who can grant such a thing doesn't give a shit whether you believe them or worship them. And if you try to manipulate them by appealing to their ego with stupid rituals and songs about how awesome they are, then expect the same thing as walking up to a sleeping lion and flicking his love spuds with a wet towel.